What's up everybody, I'm back with another video, and this time I'm doing a tutorial on Roach-SwarmHost in ZvP. So, this is just a replay of me playing versus the AI, and I'm just going to go through all the steps to this. I'm not going to talk about the early game here, because I have other videos for that, and you can use basically whichever early game you want to get to this point, where we're going to start off from. The one criteria, or the couple of things you want to think about when doing this style is, first off, the map. This style is much stronger on shorter maps, where you can get across the map with your SwarmHost faster. Because essentially what we want to do is just hit a really strong timing with our SwarmHost and our roaches, and we're not really looking to play a macro game, or drag the game out. We're very much looking to just kill our opponent with this build. And the other thing you want to consider is the opening of the Protoss. You don't really want to do this versus like 2-Stargate Void Ray. You can do it versus like glaive builds, but that kind of depends. Because what makes this build effective is you being able to cut units for a while, save up money, and then make all your SwarmHosts at once, and then run them across the map right away. But if your opponent is being in your face and aggressive and you have to be defensive, then obviously the SwarmHost is not going to be very useful. You would rather just have roaches in that case. So best case scenario for this build is playing up versus like a single Stargate, where they open Oracle, or like 2 or 3 Oracles. That's like the best case for this build, because that will give you some time to power up and get your SwarmHost out without being pressured too much. And that's ideal. In the ideal scenario, we always make our SwarmHost first and then the roaches, but that's something you're going to have to adapt a bit on the fly with. If you are forced into making roaches before, that's sometimes going to happen. But in general, you want to make your SwarmHost as fast as possible, and then start moving across the map and reinforce with roaches. So yeah, those are the things to consider when doing this build. And what the point where you want to get to is just to get to a point where you have around 66 drones. You have your Roach-Warren and Evo, researching Evo speed and +1, and your infestation pit on the way, and as many queens as you need. So you're going to have to adjust that number on the fly depending on how many air units the opponent has. If they have no air units, you don't need that many queens. If they keep making oracles, for example, they go up to 3, 4, even 5 oracle from one Stargate, you'll need to add 1 more queens. So that's something you'll have to adjust on the fly. Once we get to this point, we have around 66 drones, 6 gases. We have our upgrades going, the infestation pit on the way. Now we want to start making a shit ton of overlords, just because the SwarmHost and the roaches are going to soak up a lot of supply. So what we want to do here is start making a lot of overlords. And SwarmHosts are actually quite gas expensive, not so much minerals. It's very close in how much they actually cost in minerals and gas. So it's very important that you don't need to save that many minerals, you need to just save your gas. So make sure that you get all your overlords out here as soon as you can. And then we just want to, again, like if he was doing some pressure here, we might need to make some roaches, but ideally we don't. And ideally we try to make all our SwarmHosts at once. And you want to make like at least 9 or 10 SwarmHosts. If you have the money for it, you can go up to like 14. If you don't have the money for it, yeah, just go for like minimum 9 or 10. And after that we go into roach production. Yeah, we keep making overlords here. You want to make a lot of overlords just so you free up supply, because we just want to like these units all soak a lot of supply, and from now we just want to start rallying roaches across the map. So what you would do here in this scenario is, if you're floating minerals, you're out of gas and you have extra minerals, is if you need them you make extra queens. If you don't need them, you can start making a couple of spines in your mineral lines, just because the one annoying thing when playing this style is dealing with zealot counter attacks. If you're floating a lot of money that you can't spend, getting a 4th hatch could be worth it, but like I mentioned earlier, we're not really looking to play a macro game here. We're looking to kill our opponent with this timing here. But yeah, those are the things you would spend your minerals on if you have them. But in general, from this point on, you just want to make roaches non-stop for the rest of the game until your opponent dies. And so yeah, we got crossbows. I mentioned this being good on short maps. The other thing you would want to think about is you want to have a location where you can threaten 2 bases at the same time with the SwarmHost. So on this map, if you go here with your SwarmHost, you're threatening the natural and the third base at the same time. If you were playing on, let's say, Jagannatha, you would go here, because they would take this third base on Jagannatha. You would go here with your SwarmHost, because you can threaten both the main and the natural at the same time. And you kind of want to adjust here a bit on the fly when you send your Locust Wave in. And you want to go towards the Nexus to force him to come out and fight you. And if you get the chance to fight him, you fight with the Roaches and the Locusts at the same time, and you try to crush his army. And if he doesn't threaten your Locust, you just go for the Nexus. The whole idea is just to threaten the Nexus, so he has to come out and fight you, and if he just lets you do it, then you just kill the Nexus. And what you want to do is just keep making Roaches here, non-stop. And when you get to the point where you've used your Locust Wave, and let's pretend that these guys are dead, let's speed up a bit. So after these guys are dead, you don't have your Locust, you still have your Roach army, and now he tries to push you back a bit. He starts moving out with his army and starts pushing you back. What you want to do is you want to split off some Roaches, like this, and if he chases you far out, like if he keeps chasing you like all the way over here, you use these Roaches to run by into his natural. Because what his goal is right here is to chase you away, so that you have to use a Locust Wave far away, which is not what you want. You want to use all your Locust Waves as close to his base as possible to force fights and threaten the Nexuses, right? So if we ever have Locust on cooldown, we should use small Roach run-bys to force him to stay back with his army, so we can launch the next wave close to his base. And yeah, from here there's no real transition. You just keep making Roaches and keep forcing trades with the Locust Waves until you kill him, more or less. Sometimes you get in some weird scenarios when you can kind of transition, and usually the most common transition is into Lurker. You could add in Banelings in some scenarios, but in general with this style you're just looking to put on heavy pressure with 66 drones. Like I said, if you have a bunch of extra minerals, you just get a 4th hatch, but we're not really looking to macro out of this too much. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, the important thing is just like I talked about, is getting the Locust out. So you can do this in versus other builds than a single Stargate. You can do them, for example, versus maybe DT builds. You can maybe do them versus Adept builds, though I don't necessarily recommend it. The important thing is just that you have some sort of downtime where there's no pressure on you, where you can save up for your SwarmHost early and get them out early and then go into Roaches. If you're forced to be defensive the entire time, and then like suddenly like 10 minutes into the game you make SwarmHost, they're going to be less effective because the Protoss are going to have better upgrades, they're going to have more bases, losing a Nexus is going to hurt less, and in general like the SwarmHost is just such a supply heavy unit that you don't really want to have it for a really long time, because it's, or you don't want to have it late into the game because it's so supply inefficient, right? And the later you get into the game, the more efficient army usually wins. So the whole idea here is that we hit a very hard, fast timing where we max out as fast as we can. And yeah, we just try to get across the map. And when we first move out here with our SwarmHost, show you guys. When we first move out here, if he were to move out himself, to move out and meet us in the middle of the army here, what you want to do is just use a couple of SwarmHost, like 2 or 3, to force him back. You don't want to use like all your Locusts at once, because then he's just going to run away and you've wasted your wave, and now you can't be aggressive anymore, right? So it's very important that you use only a couple to force him back, and then here you go for the wave. And you kind of have to look, like if his army is over here, you send the Locust Wave over here. If it's over here, you send it over here. Obviously this is going to depend from map to map, but in general you just want to force his army away from his batteries, and then you can engage it with the Roach Ravager and the Locust at the same time. And if he doesn't try to fight you, you just go for the Nexus. And the entire time you should just be reinforcing with Roaches, and you should be able to, like, once you get maxed here by the second Locust Wave, you should be almost staying maxed the entire time while just trading away your Roaches, keeping your SwarmHost alive. And like I mentioned, if he's making more Stargate units, you can add on extra queens. But you don't really want to do this versus like 2 Stargate Void Rays. If you scout that they're going 2 Stargate Void Rays, you need to do something else. And yeah, like I mentioned, for the early game, it's very straightforward. But I have other videos on that, so I'm gonna link to an early game guide for that if you guys need that. But you can do this from basically any opener, as long as you don't make too many units before the SwarmHost. It's all good. You can even do this from 12 pool, depending on what they do in response to your 12 pool and how the game looks once you get into this point. But yeah, that's about it. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll be back again soon with another video.